This next story reminds me of an episode I could have seen on The Twilight Zone. Imagine you're driving down a road, alone, when suddenly you feel a bump. You think you've hit somebody. So you pull your car over and check, but you find nothing. A little while later, you feel another bump. Again, you think you've hit a person. And once again, you pull over. But this time, you actually get out of the car. Your heart's pounding. You look around. Still, you find nothing. Now imagine this happening every time you get behind the wheel, over and over again. But this is no episode out of The Twilight Zone. For many people, this is very real. Case in point, Lois Pyle of Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
There was nobody there, right?
No, dear, it was a pothole.
Are you sure? But it was big. I mean, it was a big dip. Are you sure?
Positive.
I mean, it was a big bump.
Watching Lois Pyle drive is a surreal experience.
Those are bumps, right? There's bumps, and I couldn't see if that guy is still there.
Yes, he's still there.
For the past 10 years, whenever Lois hits the road, she also thinks she's hitting people on the road. She truly believes this. Lois is constantly looking around, checking the mirrors, anticipating a catastrophe that never happens.
I don't believe it's possible to go from my house up to the store without having a body under the wheels of my car.
Lois's real problem is not her driving. Instead, Lois suffers from an illness, a form of obsessive compulsive disorder I'd never heard of. It's called harming obsession, and in her case, Lois is afraid she's going to run someone over. Physically, what happens when you're driving down the road and you think you've hit someone?
Honest to God, I don't think that it could be any worse than if I had hit somebody, because I shake literally like a leaf. I'm gripping the steering wheel in a death grip. I mean, you would think that, there was a woman sprawled across my hood.
For Lois, a 10-minute drive to the market can take hours.
No. I'll turn around up here.
Now, I couldn't believe this either, but take a look at what Lois does. She actually turns around, goes back to see if there's a body lying in the road. She showed us how sometimes she even gets out of the car and looks underneath it. She does this over and over again, looking for a victim who doesn't exist.
It's like you're at war within your brain. I would tell myself, there's nobody there, but it wouldn't work.
I banged my head on the steering wheel trying to force myself, literally, don't do this.
Richard DeLude has battled his harming obsession since he was 19.
At my worst periods, I could do 25 turnarounds in a matter of an hour, 2 hours.
And watch what happens when Richard tries to navigate his car through the school zone.
We're approaching this intersection right here with a bunch of children on the corner. This is a very, very highly intense for me right now. Very tough. My heart rate's going, very nervous, very scary. No, I have to check. I try to resist. I went maybe 6 blocks and I can't take it no more. I gotta check. And I gotta, because these where these kids are. I have to check.
Richard is so convinced he might have hit someone, he gets out of the car to check the intersection.
When I'm getting out of the car, automatically my perception is that I hit someone.
But wouldn't you see the body lying there on the street?
At that point, when your anxiety level is so sky high, you're not thinking rationally. You're thinking totally irrationally. All you're thinking about is the guilt that you hit someone.
Understand that OCD is the doubting disease.
Dr. Bruce Hyman is a psychologist who specializes in obsessive compulsive disorders, OCD. He says there may be as many as 1.5 million sufferers of harming obsession. Why, after the third or fourth or 20th time?
100th time.
100th time going around looking for someone they hit, not finding them, why don't they realize there was never anybody there?
The thought is, maybe this is the one time that I've actually done it, which in a sense negates all the previous experiences of turning around and finding nothing went wrong.
And that's exactly what's going on in Richard's mind. Here, he stops again, right in the middle of the road, to check for victims. You look in the street, you look in the bushes. How long does it take for you to satisfy yourself?
It could take maybe 20 minutes before I finally give up on it and let it go.
When that patient does a turnaround, goes back to the site where they think an accident occurred, they get this sense. Okay, that sensation of relief feeds the whole sequence of behaviors that led up to it.
To the people who are waiting for you to arrive somewhere, to your boss who is waiting for you to get to work, what do you say to them?
You have to make lives. I got a flat tire. I ran out of gas. My car stalled and I couldn't start it.
And this affliction can take a heavy toll. Richard says his OCD destroyed his 2 marriages and later pushed him to attempt suicide. Lois became housebound and totally dependent on her husband and son to ferry her around. It became her family's little secret.
They knew. I mean, there was just no 2 ways about it. They knew they better not dare say a word, and they knew to make excuses for me, too.
I didn't want to tell anyone. I thought they would think there was something seriously wrong with me and I'd be locked up.
Donna Hedman of Orange County, California, also suffers from harming obsession. But it's not mowing down pedestrians that Donna obsesses about. It's hurting children, her own children.
I really began to think I was possessed, that I had a demon.
Donna says it started 18 years ago, one day soon after her first child was born.
And I was sitting, rocking the baby in front of the fireplace, and the fire crackled a little bit, and I looked over at the fire, and then I looked back at the baby, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, came this image of myself just picking him up and hurling him into the fire, just tossing him in. I started to just weep. I mean, I just started crying hysterically, and I thought, my God, how could I have thought that?
And could you ever picture your son dead? Did you want him dead?
No. God, no.
Donna prayed her harming thoughts would go away, but they didn't. In fact, when her daughter was born 8 years later, they got worse. Donna was afraid to share what was happening to anyone but her husband and her mother. Desperate, she turned to her priest for help.
I actually asked him to either perform an exorcism for me or arrange for some priest who did those to do it. And I was serious.
You thought the devil was inside you?
I did.
Then one day, Donna began describing her symptoms to a social worker.
As I was talking to her, I could just see on her face, it was like a light bulb was going on. It's like her eyes were getting bigger and bigger, and she said, you know, Donna, I think you have obsessive compulsive disorder.
Donna was referred to Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz of the UCLA Medical Center, who literally wrote the book on OCD called Brain Lock. How can you be so sure that they aren't going to harm somebody?
This has been an extremely well-studied subject. These people do not act violently. The risk is less than a random group of normal people.
Using PET scans, Dr. Schwartz has been able to show photographically that the brain of someone with OCD is different. The patient actually has a chemical imbalance. Their brain is overactive. You can see that side by side, the scan of the OCD brain is more lit up, more hyperactive compared to the normal brain.
The structure in the brain that is not working properly in obsessive compulsive disorder is very much part of the same brain mechanism that is broken in Parkinson's disease. So you can literally think of these intrusive thoughts as being like a tremor in your thoughts instead of a tremor in your body.